So, I bought an E60 BMW. When this car was released, people thought BMW had gone mad with its radical styling and more refined dynamics. However, as the 5 Series departs further and further from its roots and into the future, can it be said that the old E60 struck the perfect balance?
In order to understand how crucial the 5 Series is to the BMW model range, let's take a quick history lesson. So the first generation 5 Series, the E12, that was the first ever BMW M car. It was dubbed the M535i, and it wasn't the first time that BMW Motorsport had feddled with the 5 Series, or indeed another BMW, but it was the first car to have that M designation on the trunk lid. Now, the second generation 5 Series, the E28, was BMW's first ever diesel-powered car. Available in the 524 TD format, it was a turbocharged diesel. Now, they also offered a 524D later on that was naturally aspirated, but the TD was the first ever BMW diesel. Moving on to the E34. The E34 was available in a 518G trim. Now, that car is extremely rare, but it was the first BMW to run on an alternative fuel, in this case, natural gas. Then the E39, the car that is really well known across the globe as being the greatest 5 Series ever made. Build quality was top notch, there was a plethora of available engines, and the styling was perfect. Those cars are timeless, and they were amazing fun to drive. And then this car came along, the E60. So let's start out with some specs. So this car that we're in now is a 530xi, and it's a 2007, so it's equipped with the later N52 engine, which is a 3-liter inline-six producing 255 brake horsepower and 220 foot-pounds of torque from around 2,700 RPM. Now, that power goes through either a 6-speed automatic transmission made by ZF, or what we have here, a beautiful 6-speed manual gearbox. Now, being an XI model, this car is also equipped with BMW's xDrive all-wheel drive system. Now, above this car you had the 550i, and below it you have the 525i. The 550 had the 4.8 V8, the 525 had the same engine as this car, but detuned with a more restricted intake manifold. The engine in this car is a real treat. It has great mid-range power, and above around 3,500 RPM, it really comes alive. Compared to the detuned version of this car, the 525i, which was replaced by the 528, in case you didn't know that, this car's engine feels way more charismatic. The steering in this car is nicely weighted. It's lighter than that of an E90, but it's not too light. This car does have the hydraulically assisted steering, so you still get a great amount of feedback. The gear change is great too. It has a nice tactile feel to it. The gear changes are tight and accurate. However, the gear change is a little bit long. That's a kind of stereotypical BMW thing. Some people like it, some people don't. But you have to remember, on these XI models, you cannot upgrade to a short shift kit because of the transfer case. It gets in the way, and no one has developed one for these XI cars. However, if you buy a 2-wheel drive model, that is an option for you if the long throws are not something you're into. Where the car's inputs falter is really just in the pedals. While the positioning of them is quite nice, rev matching is really easy, the throttle pedal has a bit of a dead zone with like the first half-inch or so of travel. Now, this can be programmed out if you get a tuner module, Remus makes one, and there are a few other companies that make these as well. But from the factory, there is a little bit of lag. It takes some getting used to, but after a while, you don't notice it too much. Now this car has a great chassis. It has near 50-50 weight distribution, and that's thanks to not only the engine being mounted fairly far back, but also a ton of aluminum being used up front, both in the suspension and in the bodywork. Speaking of the suspension, it's very well damped. This car, while it does have the Sport package, is not equipped with a Sport suspension because it is an X-Drive model, as I said before. But the ride is very soft, supple, and it's very composed over bumps. It rolls a little bit in the corners, but it doesn't roll so much that you can't go on a spirited drive and enjoy yourself. However, whenever you're pushing the car towards its limits, it understeers quite a bit at exit of the corner. Now, this is exaggerated by the car's stability control system and its traction control system. If you toss the car into a corner, you can feel the back end kind of wanting to rotate a bit, but once you get on the power, the stability program will cut power and apply the brakes, and it just neutralizes it, causing a ton of understeer. If you shut those systems off, you get a little bit more rotation, but then X-Drive steps in and sends power to the front. So at best, it's a very neutral car, but it's not oversteery. However, the balance of the car still makes it feel very rear driven. It does not feel like a front wheel drive car in any respect. Now, this car might be 10 years old now, but it still feels like every bit of a $60,000 car as it did the day it rolled out of the showroom. This one has 168,162 miles on it right now, and having driven E60s with less than half of this mileage, it feels more or less the same. There are a few slight squeaks. Those are coming from the adjustable seat bolsters in this car, but other than that, you really can't fault it. And considering that these things can be had for around $7,500 these days, it's a great value because it still feels like a new car almost. The only thing that really dates it is the iDrive system. Now, while the iDrive system is very easy to use, contrary to popular belief, it can be a bit cumbersome when it comes to iPod connectivity and so forth. However, it is still possible, and it still works well enough that you can get around without too much issue. Now, the great thing about this car is, as good as it is on back roads and driving briskly, let's say, it's great around town too, as you would expect from a 5 Series. I'm putzing around now at 15-20 miles an hour through this village, and it's really comfortable. It's not difficult at all. The ride is comfortable, it's quiet in here. Can't really hear anything that's going on outside. The car is a great stereo. Climate control works nicely. All in all, no complaints.
So, where does that leave us? Well, while the E60 may not be quite as driver-focused as its predecessors, it adds a welcome amount of soulfulness to the refined, often bland world of luxury motoring. The E60 is indeed a proper 5 Series.